April 11th, 2023. I'd like to call the members to order. This hybrid meeting is being facilitated through Zoom and is being held on the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation, the original custodians of the unceded land in which the city of Ottawa is located. We extend our respect to all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank members Podolsky, Conforti, and Hassel for their service to our city, as this is their last meeting as members of this committee. Their important and numerous contributions have been well received by the municipality and the heritage community, and we are so thankful to have had you around this table, and we are thankful for your service. So thank you. Members are reminded to submit any motions, visual supports, or declarations of interest in writing to the coordinator at their earliest opportunity. Although the deadlines have passed for residents to register to speak and provide written submissions to this committee, residents may still make written submissions to council. All reports considered today will be submitted to Ottawa City Council on April 26, 2023. A reminder that if participants are having technical issues with their Zoom connection, they may call in using the backup telephone number provided by the coordinator. I have received regrets from member Conforti. Could the committee coordinator please call the roll? A reminder to members to unmute themselves when they're called.
Councillor Kelly?
Present.
Member Podolsky?
Present.
Member Quinn?
Present.
Councillor Troster?
Here.
Member Conforti? Councillor Leeper?
Good morning.
Member Hassel?
Present.
Vice Chair Plount?
Ici.
You have quorum.
Thank you so much. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, are the minutes of Monday, March 6, 2023 confirmed? Confirmed. Thank you so much. Our first item on the agenda is landmark building consultation for 359 Kent and 436 and 444 McLaren Street, properties designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The development application, so a development application has been submitted for an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for these properties. The properties are located within the Centertown HCD and are designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The application is being submitted as a landmark building. The Central and East Downtown Core Secondary Plan provides policy direction for landmark buildings, and it permits the design to depart from the built form parameters established for Centertown, subject to the application meeting specific criteria. It is intended that landmark buildings will make both significant and exceptional contributions to the public realm and overall identity of Centertown. Part of the review process for landmark buildings includes that a council-approved public consultation strategy be developed by the applicant. The report entitled Formal Review and Consultation Process for a Landmark Building, 359 Kent, 236 and 444 McLaren Street was approved by council on March 23rd, 2022. A copy of the report and the supporting document 1 are attached for reference and was circulated to members of the committee. As part of the public engagement strategy, the first consultation with the Built Heritage Subcommittee took place on June 20th, 2022, and the second consultation will take place at the upcoming April 11th BHC meeting. Heritage staff will give a brief introduction to this item, and the applicant team will provide a presentation on the updated design. Members will be able to ask questions and provide feedback to staff at the meeting, during this meeting, if any, in relation to the second phase of consultation. The applicant team will be available to answer questions and receive feedback in addition to city staff. It's important to note that there is no application under the Ontario Heritage Act at this time, and staff do not have a formal position on the file, but have engaged through the Planning Act application process. The heritage permit is expected to be submitted later this year. So I thank members for their engagement and look forward to this update.
Chair. I'll just do a very brief introduction because I think you covered most of the main points. I'll just make two additional notes that the heritage survey forms for these properties are on file and they're available in the shared folder if you'd like to see those. And one other note is that on Friday, there's a special urban design review panel for this file as well, and that is open to the public can attend. And with that, I'll pass it over to the applicant who I see are here.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Next slide, please. Today, we will be reviewing the proposed design for the 359 Kent Street landmark designated site. This presentation will highlight the heritage components that have been retained and integrated. Next slide, please. The site is situated between Gilmore Street and McLaren Street in the heart of Centertown. Next slide, please. The site consists of two existing heritage homes along McLaren Street at 444 and 436, as well as the Legion Building and asphalt surface parking lots. Next slide, please. The proposed design evolved in response to several factors. Retention of the existing heritage components, such as the heritage homes at 444 and 436 McLaren, were crucial to maintaining a sense of place and reflecting the neighborhood's history and streetscape character. Additionally, the proposed design retains the heritage facades of the Legion Building at the intersection of Kent and Gilmore along the south and west facades. Further considerations of sustainability, particularly the benefits of heritage retention, were also at the forefront of design considerations. The proposed design also aims to reinvent Kent Street to its original streetscape by adding mature trees and green space for users of the site, while uniting the various components of the proposed design. The tower portion sustainability-driven form will provide density and contribute to the ever-evolving Ottawa skyline. Next slide, please. The process in which these design factors led to the proposed design can be exemplified in this partie diagram. We begin with the existing conditions where the Legion Building and heritage homes at 444 and 436 McLaren are situated. We have retained the two homes along McLaren, highlighted in yellow, as well as the primary and placemaking elevations, the south and west facades of the Legion Building. Due to the desire for increased density on the site, an additional 5-story podium component has been added along Gilmore Street. Greenery at grade wraps around the heritage homes, while new green space is elevated to the new rooftop podium. The 30-story tower mass, a result of the reallocated density from the permitted 9-story yield, is regulated in height by the parliamentary view plane. Next slide, please. The tower's simple form was derived from sustainability initiatives such as improving envelope efficiency through a lack of stepbacks and minimal balcony projections, limiting glazing, and strategically opening and orienting the southwest corner to optimize collecting solar energy through photovoltaic systems. Next slide, please. This view of the proposed design from McLaren and Kent Street shows the integration of the west facade of the Legion Building, as well as the retained heritage homes along McLaren Street. Next slide, please. Based on the high-rise design guidelines, we have segmented the proposed design into 4 components: the heritage podium and public realm experienced by pedestrians, the level 6 podium park containing amenity space for residents, the body of the tower, and the crown encapsulating mechanical space and rooftop amenities. Next slide, please. I'll now pass it over to John, who will speak about the conservation approach and retention of the heritage facades.
Good morning, everyone. Can you go to the next slide, please, sir? Hello? Next slide, please. Hi, can you hear me?
We're just having some technical difficulties. The presentation is stuck. It'll just be one more moment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. The Legion House is a purpose-built office building designed by the architect J.L. Kingston. It features elements of the international style characterized by structural simplicity of its form and a streamlined design. Its linear composition and its use of high quality materials, including smooth face limestone on street facades and aluminum detailing. It was built in 2 campaigns, both designed by Kingston. The design of the original 3-story building was completed in 1955. It actually is a 2.5-story. The ground floor of the building is 5 feet below grade. The second additional 3 floors were added in 1958 and carry on the same vocabulary. Attributes which display the heritage value of the Legion House include the silver gray Niagara coursed ashlar limestone cladding on the Kent and Gilmore facades, laid up in a staggered course pattern between rows. The inside facades, or I shouldn't say inside, but the rear facades of the building are a buff colored brick, but with the same patterning of windows. The horizontal bands of windows on the south and west facade punctuated with a vertical stepped lattice window at the corner feature in the 1958 version. The granite cladding and carved dedication stone on the Gilmore Street entrance, including the dedication cornerstone. Can you go to the next slide, please? The 2 heritage buildings at 436 McLaren and 444 McLaren, they're turn of the century buildings. The 444 is attributed to Nofke. The plan for the 2 buildings, the 444 will be integrated as an active part of the development with the intent of being a revitalization of the surrounding landscape area and a change in use from office to retailer services. The exterior of both the McLaren buildings will be restored and will remain separate from the redevelopment through landscape design, which permits them to be retained as part of the Centertown heritage fabric. Both properties will maintain McLaren's east-west streetscape character. Next slide, please. Attributes of the Legion House include the limestone cladding. It's basically a 4-inch material. The material itself is in good condition, and the plan will be to remove the approximately 1,200 limestone units. These will be tagged and removed in reverse order to the installation from the top down, set on pallets and stored. And then once the new tower is constructed, reassembled, the limestone cladding will be installed on a new concrete structure with either a steel stud or concrete block infill wall. We have the original drawings of both the 55 and the 58 edition. We have a fairly good idea of how it was constructed, and in fact, the sample removal is not actually the Kent Street building. It's an Argyle building, but it's built at the same time and with approximate, we're pretty sure, the same detailing. The materials, as well as the limestone, potentially we'll try and maintain the sills as well to complete the demolition and reinstatement of these two facades. I'm going to pass this back over to Laura now.
Thank you. Next slide, please. The rebuilt heritage facade anchors the intersection of Kent and Gilmore, providing a familiar sense of place. As John mentioned, the Legion building's ground floor is currently about half a level below grade, resulting in viewing only half a story from the sidewalk. Next slide, please. As this configuration is not ideal for site interaction, the proposed design elevates level 1 to meet grade and improve ground level activation, circulation, and site porosity. Recessed entrances along Gilmore increase the sidewalk width, allowing for a landscape buffer and an improved pedestrian experience. Next slide, please. So here are a few views of the existing conditions versus the proposed design. First, we are looking at the intersection of Kent and Gilmore from the west. As you can see along the left portion of the west facade there, the opening has increased and you can see that grade is now meeting sidewalk level. Next slide, please.
Just one moment.
And here again, we have the intersection of Kent and Gilmore viewing from the south. Once again, seeing how the ground floor has been opened up to allow more light into the ground level spaces, create better circulation, and increase sidewalk width. Next slide, please. The image on the right shows Kent Street in the early 1950s, prior to the Legion building being constructed. The large setbacks allow for wide sidewalks and mature trees, providing a nice street canopy versus the current vehicular-centric experience of Kent Street. Next slide, please. We aim to reinvent Kent Street by adding more greenery to the perimeter of the site, wrapping the heritage buildings, uniting the entirety of the site, and creating a space for users and passersby to enjoy, similar to that of the prior 1950s streetscape. Next slide, please. From Gilmore Street, we note the additional podium component set back from the heritage facade as a means of increasing sidewalk width, improving the pedestrian experience, and allowing for landscape elements to reflect the character of the existing street. Next slide, please. Next slide. The podium's two primary forms are separated by a setback glazed portion of the building, providing relief from and distinguishing the existing from the new. Next slide, please. The new podium's height references the existing heritage facade's datum, which is reflective of other buildings along Kent Street. The podium steps back further and provides transition to the existing neighborhood, as shown in the diagram on the right. Next slide, please. The segmented bays of this podium aim to reflect the rhythm and scale of the street's single-family homes, while the red brick materiality and textural quality further ties this element into its context. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The site is organized to allow a primary circulation core to run through the proposed building, the purple dashed line here, connecting Gilmore Street and the new green space between the heritage homes and proposed design accessed via Kent Street. The porosity of the new ground level will activate the street and draw users into a potential civic use space, amenities, or commercial units. The added greenery and landscape elements tie together the various uses and building forms to create a unified site while providing spaces for community members to pause, gather, and interact. Next slide, please. The landscape plan indicates the various textures, surfaces, and types of greenery proposed for the site. The parking garage located below the proposed building, terminating approximately where the entrance arrival space terrace is located, allows a large portion of the site to provide adequate soil depth for mature trees. Next slide, please. Here's a view of the proposed entrance off of Kent Street, inviting users into the site and providing an intimate courtyard space for sitting. Next slide, please. The new green space eliminates asphalt parking, activates the street, and provides an opportunity to supplement the urban tree canopy. Next slide, please. A view looking south along Kent Street is indicative of the landscape elements wrapping around and linking the heritage homes to the remainder of the site. Next slide, please. And here's another view looking back at the site integration of the heritage homes along McLaren Street. Next slide, please. Next slide. So level 6 houses a podium park with various interior and exterior amenity zones. Next slide. The animated rooftop will provide users with exterior green space, create habitats for urban wildlife. Next slide, please. And mitigate the urban heat island effect. Next slide, please. Here's another view of the level 6 amenity park. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the tower design derived from sustainability initiatives to be simple in form also is set back along with the level 6 podium parks purposefully inset from the heritage facade, providing relief from the existing form and allowing the towers to be set back from neighboring buildings. Next slide, please. The light colored materiality also aims to float above the retained facades as opposed to a heavier, darker, more imposing form, as the tower is experienced from both the pedestrian level and further away as part of the Ottawa skyline. Next slide, please. Here's just another image along Gilmore Street. And next slide, please. The crown of the proposed tower extends the architectural language while encapsulating the mechanical space and rooftop amenity. Next slide, please. And lastly, we have an image of the level 30 rooftop amenity space showing the potential for integrated solar capturing photovoltaic systems and as well as the amenity space. And next slide, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank John Stewart and Laura Clark for the presentation as part of the consultations on this landmark building, which is prior to the formal application process. Does the committee have any questions for the presenters? And I see that Member Hassel has raised her hand.
Thanks, Chair King. I had a quick question. It's a really thorough presentation, but a quick question specific to 436 McLaren. The other residential house, you can see a clear relationship between the tower site and this retail supportive amenity, but 436 seems to retain its original residential function, and the site plans seem to show it separate from that broader concept. So I was wondering if you could elaborate a bit on what that envisioned role is, how it ties into the development, and I suppose why it was acquired in support of this.
I can speak to the first part of that question. 436 is potentially a site for civic use. It is not currently determined what the civic use space will be. There's potential for it to be within the Legion building itself or potentially in the 436 building. So the use may change, but also the site integration, we're hoping to continue to wrap the greenery around to the front of 436 and also integrate the kind of rear yard of that site so that they are seamlessly tied to the rest of the development. Patrick, I don't know if you have anything else to add there.
No, that's okay. I mean, it still does remain a little bit of a question mark in terms of what the final use of that particular house will be. As mentioned, as Laura mentioned, it is a little bit open-ended, and we, as the process develops and we finalize the user, we'll be able to finalize how it gets integrated into the remaining landscape concept.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Member Quinn.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for the presentation. And I have a couple of things that I want to ask about, but I'd like to start by saying that I think overall this is a a nice development. The integration of the historic buildings and the work that has gone in to have the Legion building make sense and be integrated, because it's challenging the way it is located on the corner, as close to the corner as it is. And also the change heading along Gilmore to the new construction that is clearly trying to have a better relationship with the traditional red brick buildings of Centertown that exist to the east on Gilmore. But I just want to clarify that this project will require rezoning in terms of height. How tall is the tower and what is it zoned for right now?
Currently,
Direct that to staff.
okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this does require an official plan amendment and a zoning amendment as well. It will be rezoned from R4 to general mixed use. The current permitted height is 18 meters, and it will be rezoned to 109 meters. And I just wanted to make it clear that this is they're at this committee meeting as a consultation, as part of their consultation strategy, and they will be back in front of committee for a heritage permit application as well. So this is their second time here, and it is very much an update on the progress of design. So all feedback is welcome.
Thank you. So currently the proposed tower is 27 story, what was it?
30 stories.
30 stories, and it's currently zoned for 18. I'm sorry, I got a little.
No, it's currently zoned, it's an R4 zone, and they're applying for an OPA and a zoning bylaw amendment to permit a landmark building, which is up to 27 stories, but in fact, they are applying to build a 30-story building.
Right, okay.
Above and beyond what is permitted by through a landmark building.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick, for that clarification. And it will be coming back to us, and it is going to UDRP on Friday?
That's correct. Yeah, and I
Thank
believe I think the idea is that it will come back sometime in the fall.
In the fall. Okay, thank you very much. And my other question pertained to landscaping, and just perhaps some more details there, because clearly the landscaping is a big component of how this site is going to the various components of this site are going to be integrated with each other, and there was a lot of the green space being moved up, attracting wildlife, the trees, trying to sort of recapture a little bit of the beautiful view of Kent Street from the 1950s that we saw. Pinch me. But I'm just wondering, we do the experience of landscaping in Centertown with concrete, managing the health of these trees surrounded by asphalt. Just what is the strategy there? Is there some new greening concepts going to be implemented? Could you elaborate?
Sure, I'll speak quickly to the notion of mature trees on site. What we were able to do in this particular scenario is that the parking garage basically under the new building is basically strictly under the new component, which allows us to actually to plant real trees and have real root systems, and allowing for mature growth over time. So the trees that are depicted in the small courtyard, in the entrance courtyard, have the ability to actually grow and become quite substantial trees. And that basically carries through to the north end of the site. And on Gilmore, we'll be ensuring that we have appropriate soil depth and soil cells for the trees to grow to a decent growth. Obviously, they will be somewhat limited because of the parking deck underneath, but we'll do what we can to provide soil cells for them.
I think that's really important, because we've seen beautiful things illustrated before us that are very, very difficult to actually implement. So it's good to see that you have a strategy in place to make that happen more successful. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Quinn. Councillor Troster.
Thank you so much, Chair. So just to let the committee know, I've met with the applicant once, and we also had which I believe was the second public consultation. So I will let you know that the community is much happier with this design overall, especially the street level interaction. I was wondering two things. First of all, could we just clarify, because you keep referring to the 6th floor podium as a park, but this is private space, yes?
Correct.
Okay. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to the intended community use for the podium building, because I know there was some reference to that.
Yes, currently we have earmarked about 2,000 square feet at the prime corner of the ground floor, which is located at the corner of Kent and Gilmore Street. And basically, that is one option. We also have a few other options in terms of where we could potentially put the civic use space, depending on the user that comes along and established at time of site plan control. We can't determine at this particular point in time what that will be. But the intent is that we have flexibility in terms of where we can house the civic use function.
So is your intention to provide affordable rent for community organizations, or is it just simply to try and attract a specific kind of organization to?
I believe those might be two separate things. Affordable housing is part of this project, not specifically tied to the civic use. The civic use is a separate component altogether.
Okay, no, but I mean to create affordable space for civic use.
That's a good question. We'd have to take that back to our client, ask what their intentions are in terms of the rent.
Okay. Could you just speak to the affordable housing commitment that you've made?
I don't think we've set an actual commitment. I know that our client is engaged with CMHC and looking at the options that are available in providing affordable housing. I know that it certainly is on our radar, and we intend on making a commitment. I just can't tell you exactly what those numbers are at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we will certainly have a follow-up about community benefits and affordable housing, but I did want to let the community to know that overall, the feedback from the community associations and from local neighbors was much more positive towards this most recent iteration.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions from the committee for the presenters? Seeing none, I want to once again thank the presenters for providing this presentation as part of this consultation. Does the committee have any questions, general questions for staff? Seeing none, do any of the members here have any comments on this item generally? Oh, and I see that Councillor Leeper has raised his hand.
Thanks, Ralston. Sorry for the late intervention there. So with respect, I'm fairly excited by the architecture that I'm seeing here. It's wonderful that the whole podium on the south and the west sides can be retained as facade. It's a striking building. What are our tools to ensure that that architecture is preserved moving forward? The proposals for the architecture that they're looking at, I would hate to see this approved and then value engineered into something much less striking. Is our main control of that through the heritage permit process, or is there a site plan leverage that we have?
Thank you, Councillor Leeper. Yes, that's correct. The heritage permit process will ensure that the conservation approach that was outlined by the applicant during that presentation, the idea of numbering all the pieces, storing them and reconstructing them, that will be a condition of any heritage permit. So it will ensure that the work takes place.
There's a relationship between the podium and the tower components that has to work. The tower component has to be sensitive to the podium component. Is that something we have control over through the heritage permitting process as well?
Yes, Councillor Leeper, the heritage permit will be for the entire development. So because all the properties are designated under Part 5, the heritage permit will cover the whole development in its entirety.
And will we have very specific architectural renderings in front of us when we go through that heritage permitting process to which we can tie the permit?
Yes, absolutely. We'll have the renderings for illustration, but then we'll have the elevations as well. They'll be tied to those plans. Those plans are stamped at building permit and have the materials indicated on them. So we're very careful in terms of what we sign off even after the design comes forward.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Leeper. Are there any other comments on this item? Oh, and Member Podolsky.
Yes, thank you very much. So that I don't get feedback. This is an example of how the designation of the site as a landmark site allows public benefits in terms of heritage conservation and some potential community use and some potential affordable housing. I think that this will be a project worth monitoring to ensure that the city can actually reap all those benefits in trading for the additional height on the site. I think that it is a positive thing. What will also be interesting is whether in Centertown you have the incentive for many more sites being designated as landmark sites. And I think that the measuring of how many landmark sites are available in Centertown and realized that way will be something that we have to watch in the future. And so those are my only comments at this point, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. As always, much appreciated. Member Hassel.
Thank you, Chair. One of the pieces that we've seen more and more in applications like this, and certainly through this one, is the application of sustainability principles to projects that also have a heritage component. And it is really wonderful to see. This is more of I suppose, a question for staff, but how does this application and the features that have been proposed intersect with the city's new high-performance development standards, which I understand are currently not in effect, but intended to be?
I might direct that question to, is the applicant still on the call? You know?
It might not be. Oh,
I hope they
And
have left.
I'm only asking because I know that this is something that they have focused on quite significantly, but I think they'd be better suited to speak to it than I would, but.
And the committee coordinator is working on promoting them back.
I see
I'm
Patrick
back.
is here. Did you hear the question, Patrick?
I did.
Okay.
In terms of the HPDS, we know it's being forecasted and we know we'll have to respond to it. The intent of this development is to meet and certainly exceed those requirements. It's still early in the game to define exactly how that's achieved, but we are sensitive to it and are certainly undertaking strategies to do that. We have developed a sort of a broader sustainability narrative to this development where we will seek to engage with the city in terms of sharing data on how the building performs down the road, perhaps even with educational partners as well. And certainly, looking at waste diversion, making sure that we're sensitive to those sorts of sustainability items. But certainly the HPDS is definitely on our radar, and understanding how that all materializes is still in the works.
Thanks, Patrick. Chair, could I have a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Are you pursuing any other green building or performance standard, or mainly just alignment with the city's high performance?
Well, alignment with, but also looking at other measures to exceed it. I think, I'm not sure if Laura mentioned, but as we were showing the building elevations, that large open corner, we're seeking to explore various types of technologies to try to gather as much solar energy as possible to try to offset some of the building's energy consumptions. But in terms of other certifications for the building, I don't think we're intending to meet anything specific at this point. I mean, the HPDS are already a fairly high standard from a North American perspective. Coming from the Toronto, I think that Toronto's fourth version of TGS Tier 1, which is quite significant. And so it's on our it's on our radar, as I mentioned, and we'll be seeking to meet those.
Thanks, Patrick.
Just one other additional comment is John here. The heritage building itself, there's 1,200 panels, limestone panel, and the retention and reuse of those is an important piece of sustainability and recapture as well. It will be a significant contribution to the sustainability.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I don't see any other questions, so I really do want to thank the presenters once again on behalf of the applicant as well as staff for their interventions. And I'd also like to remind members of the committee that they can continue to submit feedback and comments on this file to Ms. Fitzpatrick. So our next item is designation of Iona Mansions, 1123, 1131 Wellington Street West under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And I'd like to ask the staff to provide their presentation.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for that introduction. So the item before the committee today, I'll just wait for there's my slides. The item before the committee today is for the designation of the Iona Mansions, 1123 to 1131 Wellington Street West under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And okay, next slide, please. So just to give you a sense of the location and some context. So the Iona Mansions is located at 1123, 1131 Wellington Street West, which is at the corner of Wellington and Carruthers in Hintonburg Village. Constructed in 1912, the building is a 3-story mixed-use building, historically known as the Iona Mansions. Mansions was a common name in the early 20th century for a walk-up apartment building. So you'll hear me using it in the singular, but I understand the grammar sounds weird. So it is the Iona Mansions, not as a singular item. The building is part of a broader historic streetscape that includes the former Bethany Hope Center, which some of you may know has been incorporated into a rental apartment building just to the west of here on the other side of the street, the current Rosemount Library, McGee House, and a variety of other historic buildings in this stretch of Wellington. Next slide, please. In terms of the policy framework and context for designations, the provincial policy statement, the official plan, and the Ontario Heritage Act all provide direction related to the designation of property under Part 4 and Part 5 of the Heritage Act. Just a reminder, Part 4 of the Heritage Act is individual buildings that were properties that we are designating versus Part 5 being heritage conservation districts. In order to be designated under Part 4 of the Act, a property must meet at least 2 of the 9 criteria outlined in Ontario Regulation 906, which establishes the criteria to determine if a property is of cultural heritage value or interest. Rather than including all of the criteria in this presentation, they are attached to the staff report, document 3, it's page 13 of the report. Essentially, they can be broken down into 3 categories, being design value, historical or associative value, and contextual value. This property is listed on the Heritage Register. As you have heard us say already in the last couple of months, through Bill 23, the new changes to the Heritage Act require that if council does not issue a notice of intention to designate properties that are currently listed on the register by January 1st, 2025, it will require to be removed. So we will be moving forward with a variety of designations over the coming months, and this is one of the early ones. Next slide, please. So in terms of the cultural heritage value and evaluation of this property, as noted on the previous slide, Ontario Regulation 906 outlines the criteria. This property has design, associative, and contextual value according to the criteria. The building has design value for its unique and eclectic architectural expression that evokes elements of the Tudor Revival style. Its mixed cladding materials, including brick, stucco, and half timbering, its storefronts with recessed entryways and large display window openings, and its architectural details, including wooden flower boxes, decorative wood brackets, round arched window openings, and the oriel windows on the west facade, all contribute to the design value of the building. The property is associated with Donald McLean, who is a prominent politician in late 19th and early 20th century Ottawa, who commissioned the building. It's also associated with the growth of Hintonburg's Main Street and the growth of the village itself. The Rosemont Public Library was an early tenant in this building before moving to their current location. And there were several longstanding commercial tenants that are significant to the neighborhood history. The property also has historic value as a representative work of one of Ottawa's most famous architects, Werner Noffke. Noffke tended to follow mainstream architectural styles, and so his works in the from the late 19th to the mid 20th century in Ottawa serve as important examples of accepted architectural norms of the time. This building represents his early, more modest work in Ottawa, yet remains recognizable for its use of the revival style elements. It foreshadows his extensive later work in the Spanish colonial revival style. And then finally, the property has contextual value for its role in defining the historic character of this section of Wellington Street West, representing the evolution of Hintonburg into a thriving village in the early 20th century. The property is a significant landmark in the community. Following the curve of Wellington Street, you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, the building has an irregular shape that kind of follows the road and has a chamfered, which means a sliced off corner at the corner of Wellington and Carruthers that help establish it as a prominent building at that corner. Next slide, please. Just to go through some of the heritage attributes of the property. So staff are recommending that the following attributes be identified. These are physical attributes that of the building that reflect its design value as a representative work of Ottawa architect W.E. Noffke, including the symmetrical facade, the central parapet with curved pediment, the chamfered corner I just mentioned, the steeply pitched skirt roof with large wooden eaves and wood brackets, the mixed polychromatic brick and stucco cladding, the windows, evenly spaced windows giving an impression of decorative half timbering, wooden flower boxes projecting oriel windows on the west elevation, the round arched window openings, and the ground floor storefronts. In addition to these attributes which are related to the design value of the building, we have identified two attributes related to the contextual value of the property, being the irregular footprint that I just spoke about and the location on the corner of Carruthers and Wellington, reflecting the contextual value of the Iona mansions and contributing to the historic context of Hintonburg. Staff are also recommending that the interior of the building be excluded from the designation, and we have not identified any heritage attributes on the rear of the building. Next slide. In terms of consultation, the property owner is aware of the proposed designation. I understand they are here today. Heritage Ottawa and the Hintonburg Community Association were notified of the proposed designation. I understand they've submitted letters to the committee, and the ward councillor was also notified of the proposed designation. Next slide. So through research and evaluation, staff have determined that the Iona Mansions meet 6 of the 9 criteria required for designation under Section 29 of the Heritage Act. And as such, we are recommending that council issue a notice of intention to designate under Part 4 of the Heritage Act, according to the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value, which is attached to the staff report as Document 5. And that's my presentation for today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for the in-depth presentation. We did receive correspondence submitted to the clerk's office on this file. We did receive letters of support from Hintonburg Community Association, as well as Heritage Ottawa, as well as 4 letters in support from area residents, as well as a letter not in support from the owner, who is asking that the building be maintained on the heritage reference list, but not designated Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. We do have registered speakers, including the owner, and the first registered speaker is Allison Albert.
My name is Allison Albert. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Anyway, I'm talking about the registering it under the designation of Part 4 of the Heritage Act. I just want to give you some information on the property. It is owned by 644067 Ontario Limited. It was purchased on February 20th, 2003. My father, Edward Moger, is the president and 100% shareholder of the company. The building is currently managed by Domicile Commercial Management of Richmond Road. My father has invested a lot of money in restoration and upgrade costs during the past 20 years. And as you have noticed, that he has also maintained the facade and kept the building the way it looks. These costs include, but are not limited to, a new roof. All windows were replaced. Outside of the building was painted. The front fire escape was upgraded. All electrical and plumbing was updated. Stacks and sewer pipes, which was a huge job, were replaced. Hydro room built. Laundry room built, and all units have been renovated since our ownership. I would like to please give to you our concerns regarding our building being registered and part of the procedure that took place for us finding out. We were aware at the purchase of the building that was on the heritage list. This was referenced on our letter of direction at purchase. We were informed on July 28th, 2022, that a request was received by the Heritage Committee in 2018 to put our building on the city's heritage register 4 years later. We were informed on August 2nd, 22, the I Don't Own a Mansions, 1123 to 1131 Wellington Street, was added to the city's heritage register on November 25th, 2020. We received our first letter regarding the intentions of the Heritage Committee from Adrian Van Wyck on July 28, informing us of the intention to submit. We tried to arrange a meeting with Adrian, but due to scheduling issues and COVID constraints, an appointment was never arranged. In this letter, we were told 2 mailings were sent to the owners of the building, November 2nd and December 14th, 2020, with their intentions. We never received these letters. We were told in writing from Adrian they were meant to the MPAC mailing address, which is my home address. In reference to those letters, I did get a copy on August 2nd with regards to those letters, and both those letters were not addressed to us. They were just like a blank letter saying we have a notice of intention. I thought that was a bit strange. Adrian notified us on September 22nd in 22 that he was transferring to a different department and that Greg McPherson would be taking over our designation file from him. We never heard from Greg McPherson. Due to the changes made in November of 22 for Bill 23 increased criteria for designation, the Bill 23 amendment will require, once effective, that a property meet additional criteria as prescribed in regulation to be designated as a heritage property. As we did not hear from Greg McPherson or the Heritage Office, so due to these changes to Bill 23, we honestly thought they were not going forward with a Part 4 designation. On March 1st, 6 months later, we received an email from Leslie Collins, who told us the City of Ottawa designation was going forward, and we met with Leslie and had a very informative meeting with her on March 15th to discuss the application. I give you that information to show that we really weren't aware this was going forward for almost 4 years from the time it was first brought to the attention. Please note a few discrepancies from the historical information being put forward by the Heritage Committee and the City of Ottawa's permit records. On purchase of the building, the following was noted on the letter of direction by the lawyers involved in the sale: Radnoff, Pearl, Slover, Swedco, and Dworskin. Part 6 of that letter said the City of Ottawa has no record of a building permit authorizing the enlargement of the building to 3 stories or the replacement of the balconies at the rear of the building. We, being the lawyers, confirm being advised that the City of Ottawa has authorized the changes to the building. Its records indicating at time of issuance, which is February 2003, its records indicating at time of issuance of certain permits that it is a 3-story building. And as per records, the record of building permits issued and recorded by the City of Ottawa. The first building permit, issued number 3660, was dated January 22nd, 1925 for 1123 Wellington for the purposes of a one-story brick and cinder block building. I bring this to your attention as all the historical records show the building was built in 1912. It is known that four stores were built with historical documentation mentioning the stores, etc., but no photos or information of the two-stop stories were mentioned other than the word Iona Mansions, a mixed-use building. I bring this to your attention as the Heritage Committee mentions that it's the historical importance of Donald H. McLean, who commissioned the building, died November 20th, 1924. There are no records as to when the building had the upper floors built, and it isn't until a permit number 3940, January 17th, 1948, that a third-story fire escape was added and mentioned in the permits. The only item we have received is a 1912 Goats Fire Insurance Plan that said the building was under construction with a 3 written on the left-hand corner, meaning it was going to be 3 stories. This may have been the intention, but no permits were issued to confirm it. Permit 2957, May 48, mentions the ground floor alterations to 1125 Wellington, and permit 3288 for 1127 Wellington, and July 48 to alter apartments from 8 to 9. So it's hard to know when they were built, but I'm assuming maybe in the 30s and 40s. We are not sure when the upper floors were built, but my husband was renovating an apartment on the 2nd floor years ago, and he did find roof shingles in the wall of the 2nd floor. One criteria we both agree on is that the building is definitely a landmark and has been very well maintained for the past 20 years. The only special tenant of historical interest was the Rosemont branch of the public library, who outgrew the Rosemont School and waited until its existing home was built before moving back to Rosemont Avenue. Other than that, it has been a mixed-use store and apartment building, with certainly some stores that are well known. It is unclear to us if it needs to be designated under Part 4 of the Heritage Act. In closing, the building was purchased with the knowledge that a lot of work and money would be needed to restore the building and make it a good investment property, which was its intentional use at the beginning. Please be aware that the lack of parking for customers and tenants alike has been a constant concern on that section of Wellington. That brings us to today. My father has just turned 92 and is doing some estate planning, and he is considering putting his building up for sale. It is a concern that having the building registered under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act will limit us to potential purchases. Thank you for the opportunity to bring our concerns forward, and we ask that the building be maintained on the Heritage Reference List, but not to be designated Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I am Allison Albert, Secretary Treasury of 64407.
Thank you, Ms. Albert. And I did give you some leeway because the letter was just circulated this morning. So just so my colleagues know why I permitted you to go over the 5 minutes. You do have a question. Well, I just thought it would be fair for them to hear that hearing. I wasn't sure if the letter had been circulated, but we do have a question for you from Councillor Leeper. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Allison. So I am the ward councillor for Kitchissippi. I'm sorry, I'm at home sick today. So Allison, I will have questions for staff about the process. I assume that they followed what is legally required of them. Much more important to me is whether or not the building meets the criteria for designation. I would absolutely hate to see this building put on the market and then demolished. A building that is on the Heritage Reference List means that the city has 60 days in order to determine whether or not a building should be designated and issue a decision as to whether or not it's going to be designated. It's kind of a last hope for designation for important buildings. I do believe that this building is an important one to keep. I have not seen your letter. I will take a look at it very carefully, but in the highlighting that you've done of the discrepancies between what the staff report says and your understanding of the building's history, I do want to make sure I understand are there elements of that narrative, of the differing narratives, that would mean this building does not qualify, in your view, for designation under the criteria as set out by the Act?
A good question. I mean, each point can be debated both ways, I guess, in many ways. I said I certainly do agree that it is a landmark building. It has been maintained. It has had a lot of changes. The back section of it is not very nice to look at, in reference to the two sides. To say that it meets the criteria or some of the criteria, I would say she's got a 6 of 9. I'm looking at possibly 4 of 9. That I feel it does meet. I'm not going to dispute that, but it's like I said, it's the issue of the timing. We were told about it. Was pretty, like I said, a lot of time went by before we were told anything. We didn't think that was good. And of course, at the end of the day, I said, we do have some things to think going forward. So I don't know, other than saying that to you, that's where we're sort of at the moment.
Okay, I'm going to read the letter very carefully. When we see that, I'll take a look in my inbox here. It's an incredible building. The corner of Carruthers and Wellington is the first place I take people on Hintonburg tours. It is the most interesting corner in Ottawa. You've got a great new tenant now with Spaniel's Tail, who have added a lot to the neighborhood. Pat McLeod was a longtime tenant, after whom we've named the stage at Parkdale Park. It's part and parcel of our community, that building. And I just want to express my gratitude to you and your father for preserving it so well and putting in that investment. It's not every landlord who would do that on a building that is not designated. So thank you very much for doing that. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your question. Thank you for your deputation. And we do have one more registered speaker, Linda Hode.
Thank you.
Morning, Chair and members of the Built Heritage Committee. I'm very pleased to be here. This is the first time that I've been in this room for, I can't remember how many years. As you know, the Hintonburg Community Association is in support of the application to designate this building. I was wondering, could we see the first slide? That sort of the page, that title page. Yes, thank you. I learned when I was starting to give walking tours of Hintonburg and had done some research on this building, that in the neighborhood, it's not known as the Iona Mansions, it's known as the Angel Building. And you can see why if you look at the center, the shape of the stucco in between the two roof sections. This is something that is community knowledge. It's not recorded anywhere. It is, as Councillor Leeper said, a very important building to us in the neighborhood. It was part of our first walking tour, which we undertook in 1993 when we discovered that the village had been incorporated in, we did the walking tour in 1993. The village was incorporated in 1893. It was the 100th anniversary. The building obviously wasn't there. With respect to some of the concerns raised by, or questions raised by Mrs. Albert, the information that has not been referred to in either the report or in the letter, there is information from city directories, which lists, and I guess we don't do that anymore, do we? But the historic city directories list an address and then what's at that address. And the city directories do indicate that there were a number of apartments, and they were lettered in the earliest years. So it's not absolutely certain one can prove that it was a 3-story building. But there were definitely residents in the building from 1912-13 onwards. And the number of apartments changed from time to time. I know I have tried to do building permit research. I'd be interested to talk to Ms. Albert where she got that information, because I was told that a lot of building permits were lost in the early building permits for the city of Ottawa were lost in a couple of city hall fires. But we do have, I think, sufficient evidence. I can't remember what the Nofke notebook said about the building. It was proven that he built it because he has a notebook in which he recorded his commissions and the money that he was paid for the work that he did, in this case for Donald Hector McLean. He did some other work for McLean, just in case you're interested, and I know about it. He designed, he had elaborate designs for an apartment building on the corner of Parkdale and Wellington, which I think would be similar to this one. The plans for this building do not exist, but the Parkdale building was a similar 3-story apartment building. It looked like it was going to be pretty luxurious. He also did some sketches, very preliminary sketches for a theater, movie theater, I think, and apartment on the corner of Irving and Wellington, where I now live in the Eddy apartment. So he did quite a bit of work for Donald Hector McLean in Hintonburg. I'm trying to think what else. I had to change this because I wasn't aware. I was aware that the owners had concerns. Oh, one of the things that I did meet Mr. and Mrs. Moger on the corner one day when they were looking at the building, and I chatted with them about it and how important it was. And they, I congratulated them on the work that they had done on it. And I have every walking tour I give, I always mention how this building has been carefully maintained by its current owners. So we do appreciate the work that they have done. And I worry that if the building is not designated, that being on the register doesn't protect it because of Bill 23. It will drop off the register if it's not designated. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for your delegation. I see that Councillor Leeper has some questions for you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much for being out today. And thank you for the work that the Hintonburg Community Association's been doing to protect the heritage of our neighborhood. I hope we see more designations moving forward in the rush to the Bill 23 deadline. Linda, you heard Allison's differences with the staff report. I'm just wondering, do you consider that any of those may put this designation in a more tenuous position?
No, I don't think so. Building permits, I think, are not necessary. Well, the building permit situation in Ottawa is not good for historical research. And the fact that these permits were issued for certain things, but not other things that happened, I think is not proof that the building wasn't built at the time, more or less, that the report says it is. And so I don't think that it could be evidence that would disprove the need or disprove the fact that it should be designated. No, it's not. Doesn't stand in the way.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that, Linda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate your delegation. And I know that Hunter McGill also expressed interest in potentially speaking. I don't know if he wants to take advantage of that opportunity or not. Nope. Okay. So I see that he's indicated no, he doesn't want to take advantage of that. So does the committee have any questions for staff? And I see that member Podolsky has raised his virtual hand.
Thank you, Chair King. I think that what has been presented today by staff and also the owner of the building seems to indicate that it is very, very likely, almost 99 to 100% likely, that the building does qualify for designation under the Ontario Heritage Act, Part 4. I think that the challenge to the documentation and the historic research raises the question that is really quite important, and that is that the staff report and the conformance with Regulation 09 are things that we have to be extremely, extremely sure of. And I think that what I would suggest informally here is that if this committee recommends to council the designation under Part 4 of the Heritage Act, as I think it should, I think that it would be worth engaging a peer review of the documentation that is prepared by the owner and the staff to ensure that the criteria that are in the staff report are indeed met. And if there are fewer criteria or even more criteria as a result of a brief peer review, I think that the staff report and the should be amended and adjusted so that there is a long-term record, and that the reports that come to council on the heritage attributes are really reliable. So it could be just a small thing that could be undertaken even after the council approves the divination, if it does. Thank you.
Appreciate those comments. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I do agree with Member Podolsky. It is important that the report be accurate. These are important histories, and they have legal consequences in terms of the description of the properties. I'm just wondering from staff how you propose working before council through the list of potential discrepancies that the owner has provided us.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the owner had provided many of those comments to staff when I met with her and her father on March 15th, and I have reviewed those since. I think, as Ms. Hode alluded to, building permit records in Ottawa as a historical research tool are very challenging. Most of the building permit records in the city were lost in the 1931 City Hall fire. So from a staff perspective, I feel fairly confident, or quite confident, that the historical research is accurate. It's based on the city directories that Ms. Hode mentioned. So those are basically annual, what I call them when I tell people who don't know what they are, they're like phone books. So it listed the address and who lived there. So there is evidence that starts to show the apartments in the early, sort of after 1912. We have the fire insurance plans from 1912, 1922, and 1947 that all show the building as a 3-story mixed-use building. We have the Biographical Dictionary of Architects in Canada, which outlines all of Noffke's works. And it shows this as stores on Wellington Street for Donald McLean in 1911. And we have looked at the Noffke notebook for that as well at the Library and Archives Canada. So, I mean, we have done a request to our Building Code Services Department to pull any permits that they have available, because I will say the appearance of a 1925 permit is very unusual in Ottawa. I've never seen one in my time in doing historical research here. So I'm trying to get my hands on that just to see what it says. It does say it's a 1-story cinder block building, which my expectation is that that may be a outbuilding or garage or something in the rear, as opposed to the primary building, which was constructed in 1912, based on all the historic evidence we have available to us. So I'm not sure, beyond looking at that building permit that we've requested, that there's really a whole lot more in terms of exhausting the historic record that we could find.
Okay. I'll just make a quick note that local historian Dave Alston, who we all know and have a lot of respect for, has the 1922 fire insurance plan that shows it as 3 stories. And so I've got some comfort from Dave that your report is correct, and of course I fully respect the work that you do as professionals. So that gives me some significant comfort. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Councillor Leeper. A question to staff. Under the regulatory criteria, did the building qualify, in your estimation, as a landmark?
Yes, Mr. Chair. That's one of the 9 criteria, and it's one of the 6 that we have identified that it meets that criteria.
I appreciate that. I think in terms of the letter that was circulated, just want you to know that staff has worked on scanning that letter, and they're going to ensure that it is circulated to the committee. That unfortunately was just submitted late, but we want to ensure that that information is circulated to the committee. But the letter does recognize from the applicant that it is definitely a landmark. And we thank the applicant for maintaining that building over the last 20 years in excellent condition. Do any of the members have any other comments on this item? And I see none. So at this point, we would look for the carriage of this report.
Carried.
Carried. Carried. Thank you so much. This report will be submitted to Ottawa City Council on April 26th. Our next item is the cultural heritage evaluation of the former Canadian Pacific Railway Bridge. Before we move ahead with that, I understand that there's a motion from Member Podolsky.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair King. Motion which I would like to table at the Built Heritage Committee is to proceed with the designation of the railway bridge under Part 4 of the Heritage Act. And I'll read the motion, please. Whereas the Heritage Analysis and Evaluation Report attached as document 5 finds that the former CPR bridge meets the requirements of Ontario Regulation 0906 for designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And whereas the Heritage Analysis and Evaluation Report finds that the bridge is one of the last remnants of the historic railway infrastructure leading to the core of the city, and whereas the report recommends against designation of the former CPR bridge under Ontario 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act until other considerations are assessed through a municipal class environmental assessment. And whereas the City of Ottawa has designated properties under the Ontario Heritage Act where private sector, institutional, and public owners have objected, citing valid other considerations. And whereas the City of Ottawa as owner of the former CPR bridge should not be perceived as exercising a double standard by making the designation subject to other considerations. Therefore, be it resolved that recommendation 3 of the report be removed and replaced with the following. Issue notice of intention to designate the former Canadian Pacific Railway Bridge under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And be it further resolved that the staff be directed to prepare a statement of cultural heritage value based on the heritage evaluation and survey form attached as document 5 for consideration by council.
Thank you so much for introducing that motion, which effectively, I think, reverses the recommendation by city staff. We have a presentation from staff on this item.
Thank you, Chair. We're having a small technical delay with our French slides, but they'll be up momentarily, I think. But maybe. Just go ahead with the presentation. Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah, we can do the English one here. And I'll just make a note to members of committee that we'll be presenting just on the staff report, so it's not a direct response to Member Podolsky's motion, but we'd be happy to speak to it after. So this report is on the cultural heritage evaluation of the former Canadian Pacific Railway Bridge. I guess I can do my own slide. This will work. It's located on the Rideau River, south of Highway 417 and adjacent to the University of Ottawa Lee's campus. Some information on the bridge. It was built in 1898 as an 8-span through-plate girder bridge. It was constructed as a passenger line from Ottawa to Montreal and was operated by the Canadian Pacific Railway. It was abandoned in 1966, converted to a pedestrian and cycling bridge, and retained by the city in 1996. It currently has no heritage status. It is not listed or designated. In 2018, the city undertook a detailed condition assessment and renewal option study, and it recommended that a municipal class environmental assessment be undertaken. Some background in terms of why the report is in front of the committee today. In October 22, Built Heritage Committee, a motion was carried that with direction to staff to undertake an evaluation of the heritage value of the bridge, submit a report on with the heritage evaluation and recommendations on designation, and consider stabilization works if needed to prevent deterioration of the bridge. So the first recommendation is to receive the heritage evaluation and analysis report for information. That's attached as document 5. Staff reviewed the bridge, similar to the criteria Leslie just used for the previous property. We used that same criteria and determined it met 3 of the 9 criteria under 0906. It's an early representative example of a through plate girder bridge. It's a remnant of the historical rail infrastructure leading to the core of the city, and it is historically and functionally linked to its surroundings. Staff are not recommending designation at this time. The bridge does have some cultural heritage value, but alterations, conditions, and a significant change in context have impacted that significance. Some of the alterations to the bridge include 3 major rehabilitations, the encasement of the masonry piers and abutments in concrete, the replacement of the wood decking, timber rail ties and timber curb, and the 2018 study identified that the bridge is in overall poor condition with several components showing advanced signs of deterioration. Those components include the steel elements above and below the deck, the steel coating systems, and the coatings on the abutments and piers. Most significantly, I would say it would be the change in context. So the surroundings of the bridge have shifted dramatically. You can see the historic photo at the top and the current photo today. The reconfiguration of its connections and the development of major transportation corridors have physically and visually disconnected the bridge from the core. It has minimized some of those historical associations with the rail infrastructure in the core. And the bridge has limited visibility from vantage points not on the Rideau River Trail. We just have some examples here. As part of analysis, we reviewed our own designation program. We looked at other bridges. The city owns 8 designated bridges, 2 of which cross the Rideau River, the Porter Bridge, or Porter Island Bridge rather, and the Minto bridges. The city also has 8 bridges listed on the Heritage Register, including the Carleton University O-Train Bridge and the Chief William Commanda Bridge, both of which speak to the railway history.
I'm just going to take over for Anne for a moment. She's losing her voice. Oh, now I'm going to cough. Recommendation 2 of the staff report is to ensure that the municipal class environmental assessment includes identification and consideration of the cultural heritage value as outlined in the heritage evaluation and analysis report, and an evaluation of all renewal options, including a rehabilitation option that would include retention of the bridge. The research conducted by heritage planning staff will be included as a resource in the environmental assessment process, and the city will evaluate all possible options for bridge renewal, including rehabilitation as well as other alternative conservation options. Next slide.
Thanks, Leslie.
Oh, okay.
So staff are recommending that that the municipal Class EA process take place. As I mentioned, that was recommended out of the 2018 study. The municipal Class EA will look at a wide range of factors: land use planning, social environment, Indigenous peoples, economic, and cultural environment, which includes built heritage. So what other information will that provide staff with? Heritage studies like the Cultural Heritage Evaluation Report, a Heritage Impact Assessment, a Conservation Plan. It will look at a wide range of conservation options, including retention of the bridge, minor modifications, bridge replacement with a sympathetic structure, and it will provide for additional consultation opportunities. Just some examples here of other non-designated bridges that have recently undergone rehabilitation. So the Chief William Commanda Bridge on top and the Bank Street Bridge on the bottom. The Chief William Commanda Bridge went through this EA process. The last recommendation is that staff come back to Built Heritage Committee with the findings of the Class EA and provide a recommendation regarding designation under Part 4 of the Heritage Act. That would be anticipated for Q1 of 2024. And then the last slide is about structural maintenance, which was the third point of the original direction to staff. And it's just a note that the bridge safety is currently being maintained through regular inspections and minor repairs. Deterioration will be addressed through the life cycle renewal analysis. And the bridge renewal efforts are prioritized based on risk and criticality. And then I just wanted to make a note that Heritage staff have been working closely with staff in infrastructure and water services, and they are also here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that detailed presentation. We did receive correspondence that was submitted to the clerk's office on this item that included letters of support from the Old Ottawa East Community Association, as well as Heritage Ottawa, as well as 4 letters in support from residents, which also included a petition. We do have 1 speaker registered, and that is David James.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair King. This is the first time I've appeared in person at a committee meeting since the start of the pandemic. So a big day. I've been involved with railways and transit in Ottawa for over 45 years and with Heritage for over 20 years. I've been president of Transport Action Canada, which advocates for rail transport, and of Heritage Ottawa, and I'm still on the boards of both organizations. My interest in bridges also goes back over 20 years. In fact, I recommended designation of this bridge to the old City of Ottawa's heritage planners before its rehabilitation in 1999. It was not designated, as you've been told. I also organized the celebration of the centenary of the Alexandra Bridge in 2001, and I've given recent lectures and walking tours of the Alexandra Bridge to Heritage Ottawa. And finally, I spoke to the importance of Dominion Bridge in Ottawa at the time of the temporary de-designation of the horticulture building, both before city committees and at the Conservation Review Board. Finally, I'm a member of the Ottawa Railway History Circle, a group of local historians whose weekly meetings I organize and moderate. And some of the research that's been quoted by city staff comes from the website that we've been created under the name of Colin Churcher. So I support Member Podolsky's motion to designate now for several reasons. The first is the significance not of Dominion Bridge, but of Andrew Carnegie to Ottawa. I think this is a critical point. Carnegie led the creation of the United States steel industry. He introduced the Bessemer and open hearth processes to steelmaking in America. He founded the Keystone Bridge Company in 1865, which became the oldest constituent company of the American bridge conglomerate in 1901. And that company provided the steel for the first large-scale application of steel in construction for the still standing Eads Bridge at St. Louis over the Mississippi River, completed in 1874. Carnegie also introduced vertical integration to American industry, and that's important specifically with respect to this bridge. Why is Carnegie significant to Ottawa? Well, he funded the creation of the Ottawa Public Library in its entirety, $100,000, only 5 years after the construction of the bridge that we're talking about, when he had retired for 2 years from the steel industry and become a philanthropist. He came to Ottawa, his first visit to Canada, to open that museum, and it's the only Carnegie Library that he did open. So he as an individual is very significant to Ottawa. And why is this bridge a good memory of him? Well, his name is actually imprinted on the steel at the end of the bridge, which is highly unusual. So we know that the bridge was supplied from Carnegie in Pittsburgh, at least the major girders of the bridge, which are largely intact today and fully visible from the exterior of the bridge. Second reason for designating is technical importance. It's been acknowledged in the report that it's probably the first steel plate girder bridge in Ottawa. It's, I believe, the longest rail bridge over the Rideau River still. And in fact, it may be the oldest steel plate girder bridge in Ontario. Its importance to the city of Ottawa is very significant. For a period of 30 years, the mayors and councils of Ottawa fought to get a downtown Union Station. Although a station had been opened at Rideau Street by J.R. Booth in 1896, it was not served by other railways from the east or south. And it was only the construction of this bridge in 1898, 2 years after Booth established the central station, that it was able to become a true Union station serving the Canadian Pacific Railway and the New York Central. It was very important to the city of Ottawa to have excellent links to the commercial capital of Canada in Montreal. And this bridge shortened the distance to Montreal significantly compared to the existing rail routes. And it was so important to CPR that they actually developed a new design of locomotive, of which they built 3 high-speed locomotives specifically to serve the Ottawa-Montreal route over this bridge at 80 miles an hour, which was an unheard of running speed for trains in those days. From a railway history point of view, it was an essential link in the Transcontinental Railway of Canadian Pacific from 1902 to 1996. That's 65 years, hosting the 3 flagship trains of the different eras, the Imperial Limited, the Dominion, and finally the Canadian. I do think it should be rated as a landmark. It's highly visible from various places. It is accessible to the public. I agree that the rerouting of the main pathway network have tended to avoid it, but it is still accessible. It can actually be seen driving on the Queensway. And finally, just a comment, just to wrap up about Dominion Bridge. I do recognize that it's perhaps not the most significant work of Dominion Bridge in Ottawa, but it is probably the most visible because most of their surviving work is embedded in the interior structures of buildings. And this was probably their first all-steel bridge in Ottawa. All previous bridges were not plate girder bridges, but were of truss design and incorporated wrought and cast iron elements, mostly by other companies. I think my time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your delegation. Are there any questions for David? Seeing none, thank you so much for your delegation. Does the committee have any questions for staff? Member Podolsky.
Yes, thank you, Chair King. If I might, could I ask a question of the infrastructure and water services staff? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we have 2 members of our infrastructure and water services staff with us today. We have Sajjad Haq, who's the program manager, and we also on the line, I believe, have Sue Johns, who's the manager. So.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming and helping contribute to the information that is in front of the Built Heritage Committee. I have several questions, if you wouldn't mind helping us out answering them. When the city of Ottawa acquired this bridge in 1996, the city, according to the records, adapted the bridge for pedestrian and bicycle use in 1999. And but however, no comprehensive rehabilitation of the essential structural elements of the bridge were taken at that time, according to the Parsons report of 2018, or any time since. And in 2018, the city received the Parsons report identifying deteriorated conditions. The report reveals not only was there no major structural repairs carrying out during the city's stewardship, but that no protective coatings were ever applied since the steel was last painted in 1969. And so the question for all of us is, why has the city neglected to repair, maintain, and protect the basic structure of this historic bridge that it has owned for the last 27 years?
Thank you, Member Pawlowski. Since taking the bridge over in 1999, the city has been monitoring and inspecting this bridge in accordance with the Ontario's bridge inspection manual. And the programming of our bridge renewal is based on risk and criticality. So it has been on our radar for several years, but based on the risk and criticality, we have not been able to get to this bridge any time earlier.
A second question that would help the committee is that when the city commissioned the 2018 report, why were no even basic interim measures taken at that time?
So can you repeat your question, please?
The question is why haven't immediate repairs that were recommended in the 2018 Parsons report or even basic interim protective measures undertaken from the time of the report?
So we have been doing the immediate maintenance need to address the safety of the public. So that maintenance has been done through the city's crews. And in order for us to undertake the maintenance, we will embark on a study. And eventually we initiated a design project, which is kind of currently on hold just because of this designation discussion. So that's our eventual next step in addressing the bridge deficiency.
And Chair, if I might, just two other questions that I think are of relevance here. And that is in the 2002 staff memo, which your department approved, it explicitly pointed out that the bridge has no heritage status and it is not designated or listed on the city's heritage register, which is true. The question is, in 2018, when you initiated the assessment of the bridge, why was a heritage assessment not requested of the city's heritage staff at that time or at any time between 1996 and 2002 to help the infrastructure and water services staff before advocating the replacement option rather than the rehabilitation option in your 2002 report? In other words, why didn't you ask, that the city has a heritage policy and that this bridge was likely to qualify? Why wouldn't you ask the city staff sitting next to you to have undertaken this assessment back in 2018?
Thank you, Member Podolsky. Any bridges in the city that is more than 40 years old is typically goes through a heritage assessment as part of the standard process. So as we are embarking on the preliminary and detailed design, the cultural and heritage evaluation was to be part of that preliminary design exercise. And at that point in time, we determined the heritage value and we go from there. So it was part of the process, but like I said, it was put on hold.
And just a final question, if I might, and that is in the Parsons report and in your own project charter of 1922, you indicate that a municipal class assessment is required for this statutory perspective, and also the acquisition of land from the NCC and the University of Ottawa would be needed for the bridge replacement option. And the question is, would an environmental assessment or land acquisitions need to be undertaken if you simply exercise the rehabilitation option?
The plans are still at the very preliminary level for the rehabilitation, but what we know from the current study that we will not need any kind of land acquisition for the rehabilitation of the bridge.
But would an environmental assessment be required if you simply repaired and rehabilitated the bridge?
As of today, if the bridge is not designated, we will not have to do any EA for the rehabilitation. But if it is designated, then we'll have to do one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for those questions. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Chair. So question for staff, and it is a shame that we are here today. This is symptomatic of a larger issue, frankly, all municipalities probably across North America have with respect to trying to find the funding and the wherewithal to maintain their critical infrastructure. But we are here today. One of the things with which I am struggling is it is not immediately apparent to me that this bridge is worthy of heritage designation. If I understand properly, and help me through this, it meets 3 out of 9 criteria in staff's opinion. The first of which is that the property has design value or physical value, because it is a rare, unique, representative example. So that I can get on board with. The second criteria, though, with which it meets is the property has historical or associative value because it has direct associations with a theme, event, belief, person, activity, organization, or institution that is significant as a community. And the color that we get on that criteria is the bridge is associated with the development of Ottawa's industrial and passenger rail networks, particularly the growth of intercity rail in the early 20th century. The bridge is also associated with the transition of Ottawa's core and the Rideau Canal waterfront from an industrial to recreational space. Is this an obvious yes with respect to meeting the criteria? It seems very vague and very general, and in my view, tenuous. Can staff help me understand how you arrived at the yes on this criteria as opposed to a no?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Leeper. So I think you touched on a concern that we have as staff as well. So just to reiterate, staff at this time are saying we are not recommending designation at this time. And one of our concerns is that some of those historical associations which we've identified, and this was a bridge that led to downtown, and that is a significant piece of the railway history in Ottawa, has been impacted by some of the changes in the surroundings. So that's partially some of the reasons why we're thinking we should go through the EA process, which will give us more information about the bridge. It will undertake the cultural heritage evaluation report, which will study the bridge, the heritage impact assessment, which will look at what possible impacts on the bridge could happen from different conservation options, and then finally a conservation plan for whatever option is determined. So I would say in terms of its overall significance, we just saw the item that was just in front of this committee before was Iona Mansions, which had a clear cultural heritage significance in terms of its context, in terms of its architecture. I think this one is the CPR bridge is much less so. It does have some value, some heritage interest, but its significance, I think, has been negatively impacted.
The second criteria with which I'm having difficulties is number 8. The property has contextual value because it is physically, functionally, visually, or historically linked to its surroundings. Staff have noted that the bridge is historically and functionally linked to its surroundings, being the last remnant of a historical cluster of rail bridges located near Herdman's Bridge and continuing to facilitate the movement of people over the Rideau River. Again, I'm having difficulties accepting that this is a really clear yes. This is a criterion that we should say yes to meet the numerical threshold for full designation. Can you help me understand how staff evaluated whether the bridge is historically and functionally linked to its surroundings or not?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Leeper. So I put on the screen, but I'm not sure if you're able to see it due to our technical difficulties, but the historic photo of the bridge, and it shows that it was once part of 4 road and rail bridges that were located in this location. So we did think that it was a remnant of this historical landscape that did used to exist in that area, and that it did tell that story. But you're touching on a concern that I think our team had as well, which is some of the legibility of those associations have been impacted and are maybe more slightly more difficult to pick up on. So we did think it was a yes for that reason and as part of a cluster, but again, the legibility of those associations has been impacted.
Yeah, it's not clear to me today that, this meets the required 2 out of 9 criteria met in order to qualify for designation under Part 4. I am very comfortable with the staff recommendation to hold off on designation until such time as this committee can make a more thoroughly informed and more confident decision that it is something that is worthy of designation. So I will be supporting the staff recommendation today. Member Podolsky, I'm sorry, I can't vote today in favor of a designation. I don't have that confidence that the criteria have been met. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Leeper. Councillor Menard.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, thanks so much to staff for the report, as well to my council colleagues that this touches on. Obviously, Councillor King, Councillor Plante, we've discussed this, and I think it's important that we're at this point today in terms of the discussion around this bridge, given all the historic value that exists here. It's a 124-year-old bridge. And is entirely in Capital Ward, but connects all of our communities, and is an important link. I don't think anyone's denying the importance of that link and the usability of that bridge. I guess some questions for me to staff are around the representation from the various community associations. So obviously recognizing the bridge serves many communities and neighboring communities. It's an important pedestrian and cycling link that exists now. We had established that group of representation from community associations as the primary point of contact between the project team and the community. So I guess on this score, in terms of the staff recommendations, when will that group be re-engaged, and how will they be engaged through the process that you're recommending?
Oh, I think if I understand correctly, Councillor, the question is sort of when would the public and stakeholder groups be re-engaged through the EA process? What's the timing like?
The public portion of that is fine, but I'm particularly want to touch on the group that we had formed with community associations and representatives on this topic previously. So both answers would be great, Chair, if possible.
So thank you, Councillor Menard. I can answer that question. So once we embark on the EA process, it will outline all the consultation with the communities, and we'll have a proper consultation plan in place, and we'll communicate with the associations.
Okay, if I could just encourage that to happen sooner rather than later. I think they've been engaged to this point, but this is obviously an important link for them. Whichever way we end up going, this is going to be an important piece for them to be discussing with you. And I think that group was meant to be that primary engagement for their representative community associations and the communities that they are part of. So if I could encourage you to do that as soon as possible, if this report is passed today, that would be very, very helpful. I also wanted to just touch on some of the presentations that were previously made on this. I think having an EA is obviously important. If it was going to be designated in this way, we would need an EA anyway, as an answer to Mr. Podolsky's question. But the legacy of these railways in Ottawa and Old Ottawa East and their industrial impact obviously shape our community as we see it now. And if costs were the only consideration, we would have very few heritage structures and features in our city if that was just the cost of preservation and restoration. So obviously it goes much further than that I know the EA process will look at. And of course, the report coming to light now after several years of previously when we just found out, I think last year as councillors, obviously an important intervening period to stabilize the site before further choices by council are made. So, I appreciate the work on this and the coordination with our office. I just encourage much more community input on this through the EA process, and that begin as soon as possible, given the valuable connection that this represents in our community. So thank you, Chair, and appreciate the time.
Thank you, Councillor Menard, for the questions and the comments. I'd also like to acknowledge, of course, that city staff in terms of the informal group of councillors who came together asking for community associations to be consulted with. We know in terms of informal contact there was, so I appreciate the fact, and I see members from infrastructure staff here today who I know addressed the Overbrook Community Association as example. I actually attended that meeting. So the expectation, and I share it with Councillor Menard, is that process continues through the formal EA process. Member Hustle.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep my comments brief, but wanted to respond to one of the items that Councillor Leeper had raised about the visibility of Ottawa's railway history. And city staff have alluded to it in their assessment of this file, but fundamentally, railways, particularly in the area of Herdman's Bridge, have intrinsically shaped the current land use patterns that we live and use today, and they've had a foundational role. The railways in this area were relocated from the core as part of the 1950s Gribert Plan. In fact, where the 417 is today was actually a major rail line that crossed the city. This particular spur had a bridge linked up to the downtown core all along the canal. You had industry serving the rail yards, and the Nicholas Street exit right across from this bridge had the roundhouse that was serving this rail spur. So a lot of the lot lines that you see in the neighborhoods today, a lot of the street patterns, and a lot of recreation that we now come to enjoy has its origins in Ottawa's rail history. The bike paths down the canal, the Trans-Canada Trail in Westboro, and even little features like this bridge speak to that transformation from industry to fun. And I think, to your point, Councillor Leeper, sometimes that transition isn't made visible. And for those who don't study the city's heritage or don't have the chance to get out all across our green spaces, it becomes harder to see, but perhaps no less important. So I would just leave that comment there to say that I do believe it does have strong contextual value, albeit obscured.
Thank you for those comments. Member Quinn.
Thank you. I just had to unmute myself. I just want to thank my colleague, Jen Halsall, for those comments to add some important information to the contextual value of the bridge. And I think David Jeans contributed significant new information in terms of the historical context to the bridge's heritage value. And in terms of its visibility, I think this is also an opportunity for the city to think of creative ways of adding some interpretation to the bridge and as a teaching opportunity, a teaching tool. But to come, personally, unlike Councillor Leeper, I am not concerned about the identified criteria of heritage value for this bridge. I think it does easily meet the 3 out of 9, and that is what we need to evaluate and determine the heritage value and designatability of this bridge. And I have concerns about process. I think this is our responsibility to make this determination. I'm surprised at the reluctance of the city staff to defer that decision until the EA evaluation, because it's not up to the EA to determine the heritage value of the bridge. This is our job. And so staff have identified on the one hand that it meets the criteria of designation, kind of reluctant to do so without their colleagues determining till their municipal class EA is complete. But I'm not comfortable with that simply because they haven't indicated in the past, as Member Podolsky has shown us since the acquisition of the bridge by the city and since 2018, that an appreciation or understanding or sensitivity to the heritage of the bridge. And so therefore, I see that very much as our responsibility today. And so I will in fact be supporting Member Podolsky's motion to recommend designation today. And for those reasons, and I will leave it at that.
Thank you so much for those comments. Are there any other comments from the committee? Oh, Member Podolsky.
The language here. I just wanted to say a few comments in support of the motion to amend. And these comments come from a little bit of my experience as a heritage and architectural bridge consultant to the city of Ottawa over the many years that I've had a chance to accomplish this. Just for the record, I was the architect and heritage consultant to the prime consultants for the replacement of the Lemieux Island Bridge in Ottawa. And also, thank you for the photograph on the screen of the Bank Street Bridge rehabilitation. I was also the architect and heritage consultant to the prime consultants for the Cummings Bridge rehabilitation across the Rideau River, as well as the Pooley's Bridge and 5 stone bridges at LeBreton Flats, as well as the Bytown Bridges construction along Sussex Drive, as well as the heritage consultant for the Pretoria Lift Bridge rehabilitation and the Minto Bridge rehabilitation, the Center Bridge, the East Bridge, and the West Bridge. So I have a long interest and participation in the conservation of the city's railway and road heritage over bridges. I think that one of the points of the motion is that the city needs to demonstrate its leadership and its advocacy through its own action. I think this is a very important point. This morning, we have recommended to council the designation of Iona Mansions, a privately owned building, over the objection of the owner. We have also designated schools over the objection of the school board, and churches over the objection of Catholic Church, in the interest of putting out there the city's commitment to conserving the heritage and listening to other considerations, but fulfilling our duty to do that. I think that if we don't recommend designation of the bridge because it is city owned and there are other considerations at play, I think that we are losing our credibility, not just to the public in the city, but more nationally, our reputation for a city that cares about its heritage. So that is something that I think is very important for the credibility of our heritage program in the city. I also note that there were 2 submissions to the committee that weren't mentioned earlier in this meeting, and that is the appeal from Mr. Vinny Sani, who was the head of the region's bridge program and who has written to this committee asking us to move forward with the designation of it. He, of course, led the program for rehabilitation and new bridges in the city of Ottawa for many years, as well as Wojtek Remus, as another structural engineer that worked for the city of Ottawa doing evaluation of bridges. And he has written an appeal to us to move forward with the designation of this bridge. Last point, Chair, in support of the amendment to this report that I'm moving, and that is that the staff assessment and evaluation under 0906 of the Act, I was a little disappointed in it, and I don't mind saying that because I didn't think it had the enthusiasm that the reports have shown for other projects, and it may be that designating bridges is not as familiar as the designation of buildings. But needless to say, I think that the submission by David Jeans and my colleague Hosso, who spoke to the landmark and the historic values of the bridge, associating, as Jeans had indicated, with Andrew Carnegie and the Dominion Bridge Company, I think that the statement of heritage value should probably be revisited to include those elements. And this could be at any point in time after the designation or during the process. So I urge my colleagues to to pass the amendment, I hope. And with that, I'll back to you, Chair King.
Thank you, Vice Chair Plante.
Oui, merci beaucoup. J'ai une question pour staff. If we vote today in favor of his motion, is there a way maybe we can, because obviously one part of the bridge touches my part of the ward. How would the process work to get some sort of plaque explaining some of the details that we have learned about the historical value of this bridge? Is that something that's possible?
Through you, Chair, yes, Councillor Plant, if a bridge is designated, or if any property or structure is designated, then it can receive a plaque with some information about the structure or building.
Merci.
Councillor Leeper.
Thanks. A quick question before we vote on this. Do we have a copy of Member Podolsky's motion? I wouldn't mind just reading that one more time.
So I've been informed by the committee coordinator that it had been circulated this morning to all members, and I do recall seeing it in my email.
Okay, could you draw things up for about? Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, having it on screen is fine. Thanks, sir.
Okay, no problem. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, I will make a comment. So colleagues, I won't be supporting Member Podolsky's motion to approve immediate heritage designation of the former Canadian Pacific Railway Bridge under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. While staff has determined that the bridge has some cultural value, I concur with staff's opinion that it is premature to designate the bridge before an environmental assessment is conducted. An assessment report in 2018 concluded that the bridge is in overall poor condition and presented two options: major rehabilitation or structure replacement. A comprehensive evaluation of both options will take place through the municipal class environmental assessment process that will outline the renewal options and recommend the best way forward. Heritage staff believe it would be a more comprehensive approach to fully understand the findings and evaluations of the EA and associated studies in advance of proceeding with designation. The renewal study for the former CPR bridge will require the EA, which will include a heritage impact assessment, which I think we heard would identify and consider cultural heritage value, and also interpretations about historical interpretations about the bridge, and an evaluation of renewal options. As part of the EA process, a public consultation process will be undertaken since the bridge serves many communities and is an important pedestrian and cycling link. And I think of the Rideau Winter Trail that benefits many communities. And I think of Councillor Carr, Councillor Menard, Vice Chair Plante, my communities, they all benefit. But I believe it is important that we support a renewal process which examines all options, allowing for meaningful public consultation, and that provides the opportunity for both asset management and heritage staff to apply their full and collective experience and expertise. And I think that element is important to me because I hear all the time from community associations that they don't want city departments operating in a silo. They want them working together. And I think that this can be a model for that. Consequently, I'll be voting no on the Podolsky motion. Unfortunately, I understand where the member is coming from, and we obviously want to see the retention of and the preservation of our built heritage, not just buildings, but also structures. But I think that we need to ensure that there is a process that goes forward, which is, in my estimation, a rational process where we're able to work with multiple departments to determine the way forward. So I will be voting no on the Podolsky motion, the motion to amend, and in favor of the staff report. And I suppose we should call a recorded vote.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Member Podolsky?
Yes.
Member Quinn?
Yes.
Councillor Troster?
No.
Councillor Leeper?
No.
Member Halsall,
Yes.
Vice Chair Plount,
We,
Chair King,
No.
5 yeas, 3 nays.
So the motion to amend is approved. And I guess the last item is the report itself as amended. Carried. Thank you.
Dissent?
Oh, and was that Councillor Leeper?
Yeah, because the report as amended now recommends immediate designation of the, or intent to designate, so no.
Yeah.
I suspect you could probably just flip that vote.
And as chair, I'll also dissent as well. Thank you. So the report as amended will be submitted to Ottawa City Council on April 26th. The next item on the agenda is an update and conservation options for the Hintonburg Pumping Station, a property designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Can staff please provide a report?
We're just switching seats here.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. My name is Luis Juarez, and today I will be giving an update on a conservation project for the Hintonburg Pumping Station. It's a city-owned property designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I also have my colleague Nelson Edwards with me for questions at the end. Next slide, please. The subject property is circled in yellow on this slide. It's located in Ward 15, Kitchissippi, on the east side of Onagum Street, just north of the SJM and south of Lemieux Island. It's a key feature in a network of destinations along this section of the Ottawa River that includes the Lemieux Island Water Filtration Plant and the Chief William Commanda Bridge, which is currently being rehabilitated for use as a multi-use path between the Ottawa River Pathway in Ottawa and the Sentier des Voyageurs in Gatineau. Next slide, please. The former Hintonburg Pumping Station is located on the property. The building was originally constructed in 1899 to facilitate water service to the village of Hintonburg. It's a 1.5-story cut limestone structure with a gable roof and an open veranda. In 1924, it was decommissioned and converted into a residence and gatehouse to serve the new water filtration plant constructed on Lemieux Island. In August 1987, the regional municipality of Ottawa-Carleton completed a restoration project to the property and designated it under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, with the intention of adaptively reusing the structure. Unfortunately, in 1989, the building was severely damaged by a fire, and it has remained in ruins since. Exposure to the elements has worsened the stability of the structure, and the property was added to the city's heritage watch list in 2022 in response to a BHC motion which recognized the structure's state. Since this time, Right of Way Heritage and Urban Design has initiated a project to stabilize and restore the Hintonburg Pumping Station for public use as a key component of public realm improvements along the Ottawa River. While the final project costs will be determined at the design stage, $800,000 for the works were secured for the project as part of the 2023 capital budget. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, most of the property's character defining elements as defined in the designation bylaw, which are seen here, include the pitched roof and open veranda, the circular turret, and the large half-round windows are no longer or barely legible. Notwithstanding the fire, which in its own right is a critical part of the structure's history now, the property still contains cultural heritage value, and conserving and stabilizing what's left of the structure presents an opportunity to update the designation bylaw, to recognize the structure's heritage value as a ruin, its historical associations with clean drinking water in Hintonburg, and for its contextual value as a gatehouse and residence for Lemia Island, and for its location along the Ottawa River. Further, design features can be used to honor and interpret some of the missing character defining elements, as we'll see later on in the presentation. Next slide, please. A consultant team consisting of CSW landscape architects, J.G. Cook and Associates structural engineers, and MH Stoneworks masonry conservators has been assembled to develop a preferred conservation option for the ruins. A structural condition assessment evaluated the condition of the structure and presented 3 general conservation options. The first one being stabilization, which would remove any masonry in poor condition, restore remaining masonry walls, and cap skyward facing joints. The second being preservation and protection, which would restore remaining masonry, local dismantling and rebuilding of certain sections, and also cap skyward facing joints. And then lastly, the third option, restoration and reconstruction using physical evidence and historic photos. Together with the consultant team and internal and external focus groups, it was determined that a version of option 2 was a preferred conservation approach, which includes the following: the preservation of remaining elements of the ruin and the addition of discrete elements such as new buttresses and the capping of masonry to stabilize the structure, removal of the laid addition on the north elevation, the stabilization of the basement with granular materials, the stabilization of interior floor space with accessible material, the redevelopment of the site with a park-like open space with an accessible pathway, an on-site interpretation of the history of the structure and its role in the city in consultation with Indigenous community representatives. Next slide, please. This slide shows several options that are being considered for security, lighting, treatment of openings, and the reimagining of character-defining elements. With the conservation approach for the masonry determined, the project team is now soliciting the Built Heritage Committee's advice or comments on these considerations prior to establishing a preferred design concept. So a few of the questions that we have are: does the committee have any thoughts on how the extent and the nature of lighting, the treatment of openings, and the addition of shading elements can be sensitively incorporated into the ruins in order to properly address conservation and security considerations? Secondly, given that it is unfeasible to restore the structure back into its house form, what are some ways that the ruins can reinterpret some of the property's character-defining elements? Is there a way to reimagine the wraparound veranda, openings, etc.? And lastly, are there any other character-defining elements that you think should be considered that aren't currently listed? Next slide, please. In terms of next steps, we will welcome feedback from the committee on what's being presented today. And further public consultation and engagement with Indigenous community representatives will be conducted in the coming months as well. We will use this feedback to inform the final preferred design concept, and a heritage permit will be submitted to alter the property based on the preferred design concept. Our goal is to also update the designation bylaw to better reflect the heritage value of the ruin. And a detailed design phase will be initiated thereafter, following a tender release for conservation and site development. And then lastly, public use and access as part of the network of civic and capital destinations of the site. Next slide, please. So that concludes this presentation, but I'll leave it with this slide here, which shows some of the options being presented to initiate some comment or some discussion from the committee.
Thank you so much for that report. We did receive correspondence from the Mechanicsville Community Association, as well as Heritage Ottawa in support, as well as 2 other letters from residents that have been circulated. We don't have any registered speakers on this item. Does the committee have any questions for staff? Seeing none. Oh, I see that Councillor Leeper has raised his hand.
Yeah, and just very briefly to thank staff very much for the work that they have been putting into this. We're looking forward to some sort of preservation of the pump house, which is an important landmark in Ottawa. And I also just want to thank the residents of Hintonburg and Mechanicsville as well for the pragmatism with which they've approached the future works. So I'm looking forward to continued good discussions with them as the design team continues to develop its concepts. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, Councillor Leeper. Member Quinn.
Thank you. Just a question for staff. I do know that the National Capital Commission, for instance, is investing in Westboro Beach, the change room structures there, and there's going to be sort of a reinterpretation of the shoreline. And I'm just wondering that it all flows together. If staff has had a chance to communicate with representatives of the NCC who are involved in that project, just to make sure that there's a synergy there. Just a question.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Member Quinn. So the NCC is part of our internal stakeholder group. Heather Thompson from the NCC has been working and has been
Perfect
advice.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Hassel.
Thank you, Chair. My question is similar to Member Quinn's. With the upcoming pedestrian bridge project, it seems this may be an opportunity to create more public access to the site and more flow through as a corridor. So is there any thought as to how this ruin and public realm enhancement at Lemieux Island could flow into the broader city vision for the shoreline here?
Thank you, Member Hassel. So that is something that's being considered through our internal and external stakeholder groups. That's something that's been a concern for sure. And the site is being designed in a way that would allow us to proceed with the conservation of the site while not disconnecting it from its surroundings, allowing that synergy to continue as those works progress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Podolsky.
Sure, I do. Double jeopardy here. I don't have any questions for staff, but when it comes time for comments, I will provide a comment. Thank you.
And I actually don't see any other hands raised. So if you do want to provide comment, please go ahead.
See if I can get the voice on. Thank you. I think one of the things that we should remind ourselves here is that this building, which is owned by the City of Ottawa and which sadly burned in 1989, according to the record, had unfortunately been left somewhat neglected by the city over all of these years, thanks to the former mayor's Heritage Matters Task Force and the advocacy of this committee over a year ago to put the Hindenburg pumping station on the agenda. The staff have now moved forward with some excellent options for its conservation, for which I think we should be thankful, and I would like to compliment them on. I think that the questions that have been posed to this committee about the strategy of public access and public lighting, I would personally leave that to the staff in consultation with the community and Heritage Ottawa and others. And I wish us well on this, and I'm really pleased to hear that the recent city budget has included $800,000 for this work. And I think that the city has actually done its duty, and it's an example of the city showing leadership in heritage conservation by looking after its own properties of heritage value. And so can't wait to be part of the opening of this new public facility when it happens in due course. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comments, Member Hassel.
To echo Member Podolsky's comments, it's just very exciting to see the diversity of applications we've had here today. We've had a ruin, we've had a beautiful rail bridge, we've had a gorgeous site on Wellington. And it's nice to see the diversity of heritage that's coming forward now and the interesting adaptive reuses that are being proposed. Some of my favorite hiking trails in Ontario have ruins, not unlike this one, and they really add a depth of experience to recreational and natural areas that is unparalleled. So thank you to the city for looking into this and coming forth with these lovely concepts. I wish you all the best.
Thank you for the excellent comments. Is the report received? Received. Thank you. This report will be submitted to Ottawa City Council on April 26th. We had no in-camera items. We did have, for information previously distributed, a report on designation refusals for spring 2023, which was massively exhaustive, if my memory serves correct. Are there any notices of motions? Seeing none, are there any inquiries? Is there any other business? Seeing none, on adjournment, is the motion carried?
Great.
Excellent. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Once again, I'd like to thank members Podolsky, Conforti, and Hassel for their wonderful service, not just to this committee, but to the city. As I said before, the impact resonates throughout the city and the heritage community, and your contributions are appreciated, and I think will be remembered and will impact the city for a long period of time. So we're very pleased, and thank you so much for your service.
I don't know, should we call it the Barry Podolsky Bridge?
And the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 9th. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.